the goal is to share composition ideas and tips for memorable shots for whatever reason you're out there taking photos. And so the agenda is about how the eye works, a creative process. Then we'll cover iPhone features and simple shooting aids, getting organized. I find that that's sometimes a limiter. You've got a great photo, but you can't find it. So how do you organize yourself so you can call up your good photos? And for exhibitors, guidelines for judging photos by class. Because I'm sure we have a mix of interest online today. Okay, with that, let's talk about how the eye works. You in any photo, whether it's flower photography, still life, landscape, it doesn't matter. You want a sharp focus. And that's because the eye needs to settle on something. So anything that's blurred, the eye is annoyed. So that's why sharp focus is number one in photography, unless there's intentional blurring, which is a whole different issue. But you want to cropping, you want to give the subject room to move into or look into the photo. Um, Alternatively, really crop closely so there's no mistake as to what's intended. Um, in landscapes in particular, don't leave too much of what a judge or anyone may describe as uninteresting or bland. If it doesn't add interest, you want to crop out bland areas. And really important, and you may have never thought about this, is movement. And it's not only applies to landscape, but symmetry in blooms, symmetry of stamens, create movement. Uh, Petals look like they're blowing in the breeze or stamens arching. It creates a sense of movement, and your eye wants to see that. Also, any time that a subject is truncated, it's a bit jarring, and it's not kind to your eye. Your eye wants to see a whole piece. So, if they're irrelevant objects, they tend to distract from the main subject. So we often call this a distracting background. Sometimes the background can be uh, muted, blurred, or it can be in focus as well, as long as it's not uh, distracting. You don't want to see a hand or a bucket or a hose or maybe too much mulch or whatever, because those are irrelevant to the photo. And then this depth of field is so important. It's the distance from front to the back that's in focus. And it makes a bloom or blooms really pop. And so we have examples of all these things. And this is what judging is based on, uh, and what critiquing or what's behind making a photo pleasing. And it's things that you don't maybe not you may not think about it, or but subconsciously this is how the eye works, and this is how judging principles and criteria are established. Okay, so keep these things in mind as we go through, and there will be terminology throughout the program. We'll talk about exposure, um, which involves lighting, uh, framing, which involves cropping, saturation, which involves uh, the saturation of colors so that they're distinctive and not blended, uh, composition, how it's balanced, proportion, indeed cropped, the depth of field, distinction or wow factor, and technique of shooting a shot. Okay, so we'll refer to these items as we go through the different photos I have to share today. So, fun with photos. I Blooms with critters is one of my uh, favorite topics, and from the participation in this category, I know it's not only my favorite, it's one of your favorites as well. And the questions that you want to ask as you're taking the photo and as you're reviewing the photos that you took is there a sense of balance and proportion? Is the composition interesting? Is there movement? Is the exposure correct? Is there a focal point? Is it fun and is it fanciful? And this is how you would critique your own photos. First up, blooms with critters. And if you go back to the questions, this uh, photo is very imaginative because of the balance and proportion and because of the cropping. Uh, and the whole composition comes together. And one, it's reliant on the health and the proliferation of roses, but it was a very opportunistic photo. You can see the different textures, and this is, I think, Matthew Gerber's photo, and this wasn't posed. His cat hangs out on this fence, and he came home, saw the pulled up and saw the cat out there, and ran and got his camera and started clicking away. And you notice he include the fence as an element. One, it adds texture, but two, it adds the the basis. One, the cat isn't floating, and two, that fence has a lot of character, and it gives it kind of a horizontal line in the entire composition. There's a lot to love about this. Not only cats, and one may say, well, oh, boy, you favor kitties. Yes, I do, but I favor this photo because it's just such a great composition, and the balance and proportion is so good in it. There, when you think about the Preakness or any of the horse races, when they put that rose blanket on the winner's back, on the horse's back, you have these huge horses. That blanket is going to be an appropriate size. It's going to be balanced in proportion. They're not going to put a 1 foot by 3 foot blanket on this humongous horse because you won't end up with a good photo that way. Everything has to be harmonious and very balanced. So this photo is really front and center, and this is by Rich Bear, who is the just an amazing uh, photographer. And this is a crab spider on I think, on a lavender rose. I think it's purple Stevens rose. But anyway, it has incredible movement to it, not only from the bent legs of the crab spider, but also from the petals. You can see if those petals had been flat or it was captured in a different way, You can see this depth of field, front to back, focus to blurred, and that makes this the crab spider pop. And it's a brilliant photo. This is Anna Kamioka out in California. She's a great photographer. She's captured three bumblebees foraging, for pollen, and they're fighting over it. And part of this composition, and it's a brilliant composition, as you can see the way she cropped it. It's certainly front and center. It's clear as a bell. I mean, your eye just zooms in, but the way she cropped it so that the there's a background that peeks through the petals. You can see the veining in the petals, the shadows from the stamens and anthers. And she titled this WrestleMania, WrestleMania B style. And so titling helps to sell it, if you will. I mean, this is suitable for framing. So if we look at the other creative categories that we can do with rose photography, uh, I kind of put them into different categories. They're put together uh, photos. There's photos created with dramatic lighting. There's photos with software enhancements from your smartphone or for your computer. There are themes. There are things that are photoshopped. And what what we're not about is AI. We're not going to dictate and say, okay, AI, create this kind of photo. So we want to stay away from AI generated photos and keep this a photography competition. But you want to so we're going to go through what I call put together uh, abstract photos. And a lot of people will stay away from abstract photos. They'll be more into the horticulture photos because they think, oh, I need some sort of sophisticated software to uh, participate or do creative photos. I'd like to share with you, you don't. And here's some examples. Well, so when you're shooting the abstract or impressionism classes, you're saying, okay, is it imaginative? Um, you know, is the you if I use filters, is it artfully done, or can you tell that I've used filters, that I've cut something onto a background and it shows? Uh, is a rose part or the shape of the rose identifiable? Um, is there something that makes it unique? Is it so busy and cluttered it's distracting? So sometimes simple editing is the best. And have you creatively named your photo? So when I talk about put together to create an abstract photo, I mean, this is a great example of taking petals, and you notice the color palette, okay, yellow and blue, and using this color palette to create a path that extends, you don't know how far, into infinity. And so the size of the petals and the vantage point that this was shot at, and how the petals were styled makes it very intriguing. A very This is truly a very simple study, uh, and because of the color choices, it pops, and because of the vantage point, it really works because you don't know where this ends. and the fact it's not a straight line, it's kind of a windy path. And the lighting is right on this. Everything is so well done on this particular photo. And then this is a put together photo. I think well, this is by Anna Kamioka as well, and this is I think she called it, "Tis the season" or "Tis the end of the season," and this is rose petals that have been arranged and creatively arranged, and her focus was on coloration, and you can see how it's very, very well done because there's sharp focus and there's nice balance, and the color play is wonderful. And to me, this is a put together shot, but with some creative license for the coloration. And this is easily done. The work is in envisioning what you want to end up with. Okay. So there's planning, preparation. And when we talk about taking photos, it's like tending to your garden. You go out with a purpose. When you go out in your garden, not you're going out to enjoy it, but generally you're going out to check on things, to make sure that nothing's been eaten. You today's today. You fertilize. You've got to do something to the soil. You've got to get down your microbes so that you have great blooms. So you're going out in your garden with a purpose. I suggest you go out and photograph with a purpose, and sometimes that requires upfront planning. And this is it's a simple way to capture an abstract photo. This has to do with lighting, and this is by Rich Bear, and it's just looking at petals in a different way. And the reason this works is it shows the translucence of the petals, and the lighting is exceptional, and you see the movement in this photo. Then there's another approach to abstract or impressionism, and that is you can do this on any. Um, there's several ways to uh, Photoshop, if you will. I use that as a generic term. Your photos. There's a computer package that comes with your computer that where you put your photos in, and you can do some minor um, editing. And this is simply rose hips, and it's you use tracery. So it's just clicking several buttons to trace and to colorize. You can do that on your phone as well, and we'll talk about the how to get to those edits a little bit later. But you can do that on your phone, or you could do this in Photoshop. But you don't need an expensive Photoshop package on your computer, like Adobe Photoshop, for example. You don't need that to create something like this. And then this is a great example by Jackie Nye. She took this, and I mean, this screams Monet, this pure impressionism. And this is simply of a single rose bush in a garden. And she was smart in the way she captured it, because you can see um, the not only the blurring and the impressionism, but some other elements of a garden. And this is you can accomplish this um, through your through Photoshop. And then there's a way to, this is soaring spirits. So it involves taking a uh, beautiful photo, and this is a great single, and this stamens are, front and center. But this is, I think, soaring spirits, and so it's a simple bloom, and it's a play on the rose name itself. So having a sky background is very, very natural, and it's a great color complementary, and this works. So that's another way to get at abstract photos. Again, taking a beautiful photo. This is European touch, and in the background, you can see it's all European landmarks. This wouldn't work if it was American landmarks because it's European touch rose. And so it, it's a quite a nice touch. And these um, abstract and impressionism photos, the creative process, it's all in the planning. You get that photo, and then you're putting a background on it. Likewise here, this is by let's see, that is John Matia. He's great with abstract and impressionism. So is Rich Bear, uh, and these are just stamens and anthers uh, that he colorized and labeled it fireworks. And to me, this is very creative. You don't see many of this, and he just colorized them. Another example. This is from Alice Green down in North Carolina, and it's a great black and white, but the angle, the framing, uh, the exposure, the crispness, the clarity. You can see the hairs on the sepals and on the peduncle. And then that pop of color just brings life to this particular photo. I mean, this is worthy of framing. It's very, very unique. And then I wanted to talk about the range or the diversity of these abstract, because the abstract and impressionism photos, because they all don't have to be complicated. The simplicity speaks for itself, but this one is complicated. This is a layering technique using Photoshop, and this is iceberg fantasy. And the reason that the eyes like this so much is not only the color palette, it's all the layering that went into it, where you can still see, you still know it's a rose, you still know it's a bloom, but the layering has added to it. And iceberg fantasy is perfect name for this. And there are many versions and a number of hours that went into produce this photo. So that's probably this layering technique is um, is the most difficult using Photoshop. So I'd like to talk about shooting macro classes. And macro is a term generally used for any type of close up photography. And it can be of any part of a rose. And you want to ask yourself, with something very small or detailed made life size, uh, is that main subject in sharp focus? Is the lighting not too harsh, not too dark? In macro photography, lighting is very important. And is there a sense of originality to it? So let's look at some, great examples of in the macro class. This is Neil Evans, and he called it Tears, Tiers of Tears, Tears. And he captured these raindrops on a very vivid red rose. And I know there was a question on how you get the color right on this. It has to do, with lighting, and you can do some subtle edits in your iPhone or in your camera on red roses. But red and orange roses are a little harder to capture, but he nailed this here. But the focus is on the very gently applied uh, raindrops. And it's not a water soaked rose, it's a close up. Neil didn't stand back 5 feet and shoot this and then zoom in to create the shot. The resolution would not have been there. He did a very close up of these petals and raindrops and then enlarged it, okay, to create this effect. And leaving or having some of that black background is just really clever. And this photo is by first name escapes me, but Eboli. And this is a lovely photo of because it has movement, and it's a play on these uh, raindrops as well. It's not a rain-soaked rose, but you can see the movement created by this swirl uh, and the symmetry of the bloom. Excellent job, and the um, the light and shadow plays very, very well in this particular macro. So when if you're out, taking your photos in the rain or after a rain, think about it in a macro or abstract class as opposed to a horticulture class. And another great subject for macro classes is rose hips and also these rugosa rose leaves. I mean, this photo is incredible because in the hips, he shows the seeds, a full hip, and look how big they are and how plump, and the lighting on the rugosa leaves really shows them off. This is a brilliant photo, and the cropping of it says a lot. The exposure is perfect on this photo. And this is by John Matia and Stamens and Anthers. And you can see the veining in the petals. And again, this is a up close photo um, with a nice lens, a controlled lighting uh, to show off the stamens and anthers, and cropped beautifully, framed beautifully. And you can see, I see movement in this. I see movement in the stamens and anthers, but I also see lines, and the lines are a way of helping the eye be guided to the central portion of the photo. And you'll see that a lot in landscape um, photos because they're like leading lines. Well, he's captured this in the veining of the petals, and so it helps the eye center and focus. Another macro that works you do see a lot of stamens and anthers. This is City of London, is by Rich Bear, and he will purchase or plant, um, care for the roses that have interesting thorns or interesting uh, stamens and anthers, and this is one of them. In City of London, that's what it is. And so he stripped it down for stamens and anthers, and did a great capture on it. And look at the clarity of it. So the uniqueness is in both the coloration and the freshness of this, but also the collection. So if we look at, I'll move on to garden photos, because I really admire the garden photos that are taken across the country, whether they're public gardens or private gardens. But those photos try to capture the structure of a garden, of a beautifully designed garden. Some gardens are harder to photograph simply because of the design. You want the roses to dominate and the layout of the garden to be visible. A garden photo should be considered, it's a collection of rose bushes. It's not a sole rose bush. So you ask, do roses dominate? What is this a photo of? And the answer should be it's of a rose garden, not of a cart, not of a bench, not of a statue. Um, is there design quality to that landscape? Is there movement? Is the exposure correct? Is it well cropped? And is there a focal point? So let's look at some great garden photos. This is by the late Tom Mayhew, and this is the rose arches, I think, at Elizabeth Park Garden. And nice bloom, and in framing here, it's a tunnel. But what he did to draw you into the tunnel is he planted people at the end of it. Otherwise, your eye is not drawn. So he used a photography technique to draw your eye through that tunnel to someone they have on a bright um, red, I don't know if it's a coat or blanket at the end of that tunnel. So it's very well framed on a beautiful day, and the lighting is perfect. But that's a technique again to draw you through this photo. And this is by Michael Wadham. He's a great photographer, and he photographs this. This is Laura Smith Kanya's municipal park. He has many photos of this park, and they're all just lovely. I chose this one, and if you can look at the photo, we'll talk about the rule of thirds, and this plays right into that, how he cropped this photo. So you can see the 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 third, and you can actually set up a grid in your camera or in your phone, or you can crop it uh, like like this afterwards. But your eye works to kind of a rule of third, and you can see the first layer are the roses, and the next are the structures, and the top layer are the clouds. And he's known for capturing some very unusual skies. And this creates some moodiness. And I love this composition for that reason. Uh, Lou Evans in California is a fantastic photographer who, this is the gardens at Heather Farm. And the beauty of this is the vertical lift and the layering. again, this follows beautifully the rule of thirds. I just didn't mark it. And the lighting, the way the lighting is working in this photo is unique. You can see the play on the front layer and more of a subtle uh, darkening of light as you go up. But a brilliant job in this capture. And again, rose garden, full of bloom and healthy bloom and beautifully designed. And um, one of my favorite photos from Rich Bear is this Portland rose garden. And the reason this works is because you want to, your eye goes through those boxwood hedges all down and around, and then it lands on that fountain. There's so much movement, and the framing of this and composition uh, makes for a photo that's very easy on the eyes. And you can imagine all the different angles that you could capture, but and he landed on this one. It's very, very nice. And also the vertical lift of the uh, trees to the left really balance the photo out. And with these garden photos, because it, all the composition is so important. This is just an example of how to take a garden photo and make it go from really good to really great. And this is by, let's see, Valentina. Excuse me because I forget the last name, but Valentina. And she captured this, and the photo on the left is is lovely. But if you go to the photo on the right, it's following kind of the rule of thirds, and it's getting rid of blandness. Not that the sky is not blue and beautiful, but it's too much, and it actually distracts from the photo. So just a little tighter cropping on the subject at hand, which is the reflection of those roses along the river. Um, and it actually makes the vertical lift of the statue more prominent, and it really enhances the photo. So someone once said to me, well, once you take the photo, you can't touch it. Well, not so. Uh, all good photos uh, should be cropped. Okay, and the beauty of digital versus a print, the the print is can be a standard size. You go with a 5 by 7 or an 8 by 10. Or if you're looking at digital photography, it can be any size, so it can be custom cropped. And I hope, I know on the East Coast we had an awful lot of snow this year. This is a great garden shot by the late, Tom Mayhew. And this is just a front view of his glorious garden. And the depth of field on this, if you can feel it, you can see it, you can see the heaviness of the snow in front, and I actually want to walk through this garden, and you can see the length, and that has to do with the focal point from front to back. So the depth of field is just magnificent on this photo. And, this is what your garden looked like at rest. So again, it works. So what I'd like to do is I'm just going to talk briefly about shooting horticulture classes. And we'll go through the questions to ask. We'll view some of the horticulture classes, kind of standout photos. And then before we go into the rest of the program, I open it to a few questions, and then we'll do Q&A also at the end of the session. Okay? So if we're shooting just standard horticulture classes, and that's a bloom or spray or a single, you want to know first, is the bloom fresh? Is the exposure good? Does the foliage frame that bloom? Is there a good depth of field? Is it great coloration? Is there symmetry in that bloom? And this is a great example of all of the above. Um, Beautifully cropped, beautifully framed by foliage. This is Veterans Honor. It's as good as it gets. Uh, the lighting is perfectly adjusted, and you can use a diffuser to adjust lighting. Okay, and that's just it can be a handheld small diffuser. They come in all different sizes, but it can either uh, di- diffuse light or enhance light. And this is beautifully taken. And you can see the symmetry in the movement of this Veterans Honor. This is by Frank Polk, great photographer, and it is of Bob Martin. The reason this works is because of the coloration and the symmetry of the bloom, freshness and caught at the right time. And you can groom your blooms on the bush if you have something that perhaps is not as symmetrical, or there's a, a bad petal, you can remove it. I often have people say, "Oh, well, I take photos all the time. I, I didn't think to, remove a bad petal or take out a distraction in the background." But absolutely, you want to do that. So good coloration on that. And this is Dream Come True. This is by another great photographer, Harlow Young. And you can see the separation of petals and how it's groomed and it's nestled in greenery. You don't want blooms that are just kind of floating out there. You want them nestled in greenery, whether they're staged indoors or taken outdoors. And the lighting is the soft lighting. It's a great capture. In full bloom, it shows it's very well run. And with sprays are two or more blooms. And this has uh, sprays are judged on inflorescence, and this has a triangular inflorescence. Again, nestled in greenery. The focus and the lighting is on the coloration of those blooms. It's not on the foliage. The foliage is blurred. And so, uh, beautiful capture there. This is an indoor photo with the foliage, and this is a Danny Bess. Um, and this is by Larry Habish, and it's captured those lovely stamens of Danny Bess. This is a very photogenic rose, and again, it's the inflorescence of the spray. It's how the eye works. Okay? The eye is looking for some order. It's looking for shape. And here you have this triangular shape. Here you have triangular shape. This is by Frank Polk again, and with the green background, the foliage that frames, fresh stamens, um, very well cropped. And then this is a classic spray by Rich Bear, and it has it's the foliage complete, but A lot of grooming went into this. These are fresh blooms, and the the stamens and anthers are evidence of that, and the petals are so clean. But this is a more of a circular or somewhat oblong shape. So inflorescence is a defined shape, and that's how it's how the eye works. It's looking for. I mean, think about it. If there was on the left hand side, if one of those blooms wasn't there, it would disturb the inflorescence. It would disturb the balance. So your eye is craving that balance, and this is why it works. Okay. Before we go into smartphone features, if you have some questions around um, any of the creative photos, I'd like to hear from you. Allison, can you help me with that?
I surely can. I know that while I gather a few more questions, we do have a few questions about whether or not this PowerPoint will be made available to members. Just a reminder, we will have a recording of this session available within the week on your My ARS portal and on our YouTube channel. But Pam, will they be able to get a copy of the PowerPoint presentation?
I can create a PDF and you could send it out if
Okay.
if if you wouldn't mind.
That's fine. We'll be happy to include any resource materials you're willing to share with us.
Sure.
Otherwise, we will have the presentation available for video if you'd like to go through and see it again.
Super.
So, um, one question as we have some questions related to AI.
Uh-huh.
The or can we use AI for editing and removing um, things in the photo, or is that off limits?
No, AI is off limits. You
Okay.
can you can Photoshop. You can remove through Photoshopping.
Okay. And Christina, I am going to ask you to unmute so that um, you may ask your question because it ties into a feature about the AI auto editing. And my computer's running slow, so I do apologize. Um, but I would say that Pam has also answered that one because AI editing is off limits. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, um, Leanne Beaumont asked, Pam, did you mean asymmetry creates movement or symmetry? Um,
Oh, symmetry creates movement.
okay. And if there are some other questions, we'll take a few more questions. If you'll raise your hand, then I can unmute you and let you ask.
Questions?
Yes, Audrey has a question.
Yes.
Okay. Audrey, you can unmute now and ask your question.
Audrey, you there? Let's move on.
Okay. All right. We have several people who are here to gain knowledge, but particularly as they are looking to find more information about exhibiting photos.
Okay.
And are there any more questions before we go on to the iPhone features section? And then don't forget, we will have more Q&A time at the end as well.
Okay. Let's go to the smartphone features. Uh, number one, number one is and not only for smartphone but for professional uh, cameras as well. So resolution, that is key, and most of us have the wrong setting on your iPhone. So if you have a professional camera, you want to shoot in RAW, okay, in RAW format. So on your iPhone, you want the best resolution possible. And if you're shooting by default and you haven't ever addressed your resolution, you want to go to your settings, camera, formats, and you want high efficiency. And you want to disable, prioritize faster shooting. Okay. And and here's the deal. When you take a photo, you can click on it and you get information. And that information is about, it'll give you the location of the photo, what lens you shot with, but most important, what is the DPI, and that's dot per inch, or what is the resolution. And it's gauged in um, kilobytes or millibytes. And you want to shoot in 1 MB. Okay. And there are many, iPhones are great. I mean, they get smarter and smarter and smarter, and they're extremely competitive. But you, just like if you have a professional camera, you want to know what you want to understand your iPhone. So the biggest iPhone mistake is taking a photo and having it low res. And that's fine if you're using it, just to share over dinner with somebody. Hey, look at these photos, or you're gonna throw it up on Facebook or whatever. But if you're competing, and this is in print or in digital, you you're the guideline is 1 MB. Okay, so if your smartphone setting is on a lower resolution, okay, it will, you may get photos that are 200 KB. If you try to print those, it will be ghostly because it's not enough pigmentation or dots per inch to make a good photo. It's not a photo really. It's a capture. But this, when this is about fun with photography, but part of the fun is having the right resolution on your photos. Okay, and you want them to be. I mean, and this is whether it's rose photography or portrait or landscape, whatever, you have to have high resolution. And smartphones can do that, but you have to do the settings. And so iPhones use setting, camera format, high efficiency, and disable, prioritize fast for shooting. If you if you have another type of phone, just Google, just ask your phone, how do I shoot with the highest resolution photos? And it will tell you instantly. And it literally is a 1 minute function to get the right resolution on your phone. If you think about it, someone who clicks away using their camera phone, you it's about storage, and so it's going to be shoot in a low resolution so that it can be so more and more and more and more can be stored. So this gets to also you want to offload some of those photos or upload to the cloud those photos so that you always have available room on your photos, or you're deleting photos that are not worthy. And most of us will shoot, if we see a beautiful bloom or a beautiful shot, it's not one click. It's usually different angles, different uh, exposure, meaning different lighting, so that you're sure to get a good capture. I mean, you may of the same subject, you may take 20 frames, okay, and then you go back, at the end of the day or the end of the week, however you organize yourself, to then delete those things that that don't show up. But learning how to critique your own work is actually an easy thing to do, and I'm happy to help you with that. The other thing, believe it or not, the uh, smartphone, clean your lens. Clean your phone and be sure your lenses are clean so that there's no smears and you're not kind of shooting through a layer of dust. If when you're in the garden, it's a lot of mulch, and you usually have your phone in your pocket or whatever, and those lenses get dirty. You can get some lens paper and just always, clean your lens. The other thing is to you can go to your phone right now and pretend like you're going to take a photo, and you double click your screen before you take the photo, and you'll see a a yellow box come up, and then you can scroll up or down on that box, and that actually will adjust the lighting. So the best time of day to take a photo is early morning before, the sun comes blazing up, or on a gray overcast day, or in the golden hour, which is in the evening before dusk. Okay. And those are great times, but we're not always available at those times. So if you're out in the glaring sun, you can use your phone to, again, you double click on the screen prior to taking the photo to see a box. And then you just, on that box with your finger, you scroll up or down, and that will adjust the lighting. And you can see it adjust. And that's a great technique before you start clicking. Uh, the other thing I encourage is you can shoot in different modes on your phone, and you can shoot in portrait mode, and that gives a little different kind of light control, and you can select uh, different light control as you shoot in portrait mode, and you can do that outdoors or indoors, and it has a nice effect. um, I, I had the same rose, and I shot in portrait mode that same rose, and the different effects of the different lighting that was available through portrait mode was amazing. So you want to experiment with portrait mode and the lighting it affords. Right? Learned how to stabilize your phone. You cradle and grasp. I turn my phone sideways to generally to take my photos. And you want to develop a technique. Most people will hold it, uh, you know, two one your thumb on the bottom, and and your second finger on the top on both sides, and then click. But you want to more cradle one end where the lenses are, okay, and then grasp the other end, and that will stabilize the phone. Another trick is, you know, to take a deep breath and not let your breathing upset um, your shooting, so that you have a nice crisp photo. And then on your on your phone or on your computer, and you don't need a sophisticated software package. Most of these enhancements are built in. You can click on a photo, and you can do that today, and you go to edit, and the adjustments that you can make for minor tweaking. Uh, it goes from exposure to brilliance to highlights, shadows, um, saturation, warmth, tint, sharpness, and always I think that sharpness is very, very important for minor tweaking. And you can do that before you print your photo or before you submit your photo. There also is another feature under enhancements, and you want to be careful how you use it. But if you shot and you had maybe a cluttered background that you weren't aware of, and you want to, and you didn't blur it, but you can use a vignette, and the vignette is under edits, and you again walk yourself through. Just click on all the buttons under your enhancement. So you click on a photo, you go to edit, and you can see all the adjustments that you can make for minor tweaking. But this vignette will blur, if you will, um, to an extent, the background. You want to be careful not to bring the vignette in too close to the bloom where you're blurring the bloom. But that's just some um, quick tips for your smartphone. But the key, and I think the biggest thing that I see is crop your photos. So high resolution, get your camera format ready, and then you want to crop photos, okay? And you want to crop photos to make an impact. You don't want a an 8 by 10 or 5 by 7 and have, you know, your rose or your bloom occupy, you know, 5% of this black frame, um, because that it's not impactful. Your eye is going to focus on all the void or the blackness around the photo. You want that bloom, the beauty, to fill the frame. Okay? So to learn more about rose photos, take hundreds of photos with a purpose, experiment, ask for feedback, understand your basic smartphone features, particularly resolution, minor editing, okay, and cropping. Uh, understand, you know, how the eye works. It's not about, well, what are those judges looking for? Judges are looking for the design principles that based on how the eye works. Okay? So you want to incorporate simple lighting tools in your shooting routine. You know, there is this for particularly, well, indoor shooting, and you can get some great photos at a rose show because you've got roses that are already groomed. Okay, they have perfect symmetry. You know, they're perfect examples. They've got the balance and proportion. And so if you have a ring lighting, and ring lighting is simply, round lighting. You can attach it to your phone. Uh, you can get a larger ring lighting, and you use your camera to shoot through it. And we'll be using ring lighting down at the Nationals in Nashville, so to capture some great photography there. But it's a very simple tool, and I know you can invest 25, $30 on it, and it really uh, improves the lighting on your photos. And again, experiment with it because you'll see a major difference. The other thing is you can use a diffuser. I think I mentioned that before. Is the diffuser is again another like $10 item you can order online, and one side diffuses light, and then the other side uh, uplights a particular area that you want. So you can accomplish, two goals. Either you don't have enough light and you want to seek out more, or you want to diffuse the light because it's not an overcast day. And that's like a $10 tool. And they're very easy. If you need a source, I'm happy to, when we send out our PDF, I'm happy to provide that for you. But that's a great photography tool, and it evens out that lighting. If you have solid rose photography skills, tuck other people under your wing, okay? If you desire to develop your photography skills, seek out a mentor. In each district, and some districts are more active than the other, I know that, but there are photography chairs, and there and or great photographers. You can't go wrong, with advice from someone who has excellent photography, like some of the photos that I showed today. And I know for a fact they're always, willing to help. If you have, if uh, some people send me often a photo for me to review and discuss with them, and I'm glad to do that. That's how I learned about photography. Um, I was very timid about competing, and only through competing did I better my photography. And it's because I would submit and I would ask for feedback, or I would ask for feedback before I submit, and then listen to that advice. So advice won't be offered if you don't ask for it. And so if you have a photo of interest, I know Leanne and I, have reviewed some of her photography. Leanna Wilson, I've reviewed some of her photography, and I think I've, helped in terms of, oh, let what if we did this? What if we did that? Maybe we want to work on lighting. It looks photoshopped, or so. If you take that feedback in the spirit that's intended, I'm happy if you send me a photo to help you out, and also help you critique your own photos. So, and competition is a great way to improve your photos. So, general tips: photos, 1 megabyte, high resolution. Okay. Okay. You want to start with fresh, well-grown blooms. You want to take multiple shots with different angles, different settings, so you have choices later. And those outdoor blooms, you want it nestled in greenery, or indoor blooms with foliage. Okay. Always foliage on a bloom. In nature, you want to see foliage. So in photos, you want to see foliage. Foliage is going to frame your photo. Uh, the backgrounds of photos, you don't want hands or feet or hoses or pots or whatever that is going to take your eye away from the subject. Sometimes it, sometimes it, um, the background or having more background is okay if it's blurred, if it's soft, uh, or as long as it's not a distraction. Uh, Grooming on the bush or after cutting is very desired. I always look at it this way. If you go to, if you're doing a portrait photo shoot, you're going to comb your hair. Uh, you're going to put on lipstick. Okay. You're going to uh, smile. You're going to have on makeup. So that's your grooming. All right. And so, same way goes with roses. You want to put them in their best light. And so sometimes they need grooming. They need grooming on the bush or, um, or grooming in staging. And so if you're an exhibitor, you develop these skills, but that grooming, you're looking for uh, removing of any imperfections and openness, separation of petals, for example. Okay. The lighting from heart to sun can be softened with an inexpensive diffuser, and lighting from indoors can be enhanced with an inexpensive ring lighting. You know, one of the biggest bugaboo, and it happens at the 11th hour, is getting your photos off your camera or your smartphone and in submitting state. So getting them off your phone to print them or getting them off your phone to submit them via Dropbox, you know, digitally, because Dropbox is the technique to um, transport a large amount of data. Now, if your photos are 100 kilobytes, um, those can be emailed, but your photo should be 1 MB, okay, as a guideline. Not all of them are going to meet that, but that should be your goal. And I put together these tips so you can think about how do I go from my phone to submittal. So if you have a compatible phone and computer like an Apple, okay, you can automatically via Wi-Fi, you can send your photos from your iPhone Sammy, or you can airdrop them to your computer automatically. Okay, you're just hitting a button, or you can sync up to the cloud. Okay. Now, most people, if you're like me, your cloud gets overloaded. You don't update the storage capacity, et cetera, and you lose access to the cloud or something goes wrong. But that's that's up to you. I think I like to download mine from my phone to my computer because the screen is larger on my computer, and I do editing on my computer. I do my cropping on my computer as opposed to my phone. There's nothing wrong to doing it on your phone. You can send by a USB connection from your phone to your computer. A USB cord is just a connector from your phone port to your computer port. If you don't have a USB connection, you can go to a Best Buy or any store and get a USB connector so you can connect your phone to your computer, and then you download your or you send your photos to your photo file on your computer. Okay. Now, you can also email yourself photos, and I think a lot of people do that. And then you download to your photo software for minor editing. To me, it is very time consuming, uh, very time consuming. And if you're dealing with a large amount of data, I mean, some of us may take 1,000 photos, rose photos, in a growing season. So that's kind of slow going. And by email, you there are limits on what can be sent and received. Okay, so um, it's very time consuming. So you can edit and then send selected photos straight to Dropbox, uh, from your phone. And like I said, I like a larger version of a photo, so I use my computer. But you can edit straight on your phone, on your edit function, and you do your cropping or your minor enhancements, and then you can send that straight to Dropbox if you're interested in exhibiting. And particularly, our National Digital Photo Contest is a great photo contest. It's very well structured. It's for novice and then experienced and masters. And so you're competing more against people of your specific skill set. Uh, what I do is I catalog my standout photos. I have a folder and it's labeled really good photos. And so when I do sit down and review my photos, and in the growing season, it gets really busy, but I try to do that once a month at least. And then, in towards the end of the season, you're working fast and furious to kind of clean up your photo portfolio, but you're, you want to send those that you've tagged to a folder so you don't have to go back and review your whole growing season portfolio, because that can be an overwhelming task. And I find if you try to do it every week or every month during the growing season, um, it makes things less hectic before the date of a competition. Or you can star the photos as you like them, and then you can send those starred photos at a later date. So that gives you just some idea for organizing. There's nothing worse than going. You've got 2,000 photos on your phone and say, now where is that one I really like? So to help you avoid the, the last minute panic. So if you want to exhibit, you want to understand point scoring, and point scoring is grounded in how the eye works. And the point scoring gives uh, judges the same template for evaluating a photo. And there is this it's based on a point system of 100 points, but it's broken down into conformance, meaning does it conform to the specific class? Uh, Horticultural excellence, does it follow the uh, horticulture guidelines? And that is it fresh? Is there good separation of petals? And you can get the horticultural excellence guidelines from um, there's a guideline for judging horticulture, and it's a voluminous, but you can read through it, or you can practice it through exhibiting. But it's basically how do you groom your rose, to perfection. And then there's the photographic elements, and that's 45% of the score. And so that's about composition, balance and proportion, um, cropping, how well the subject fills the frame, okay? And then technique, uh, is the photo overexposed, underexposed? Is it the depth of field? Um, what method was used, if it's abstract or uh, impressionism. And then distinction. Distinction is that wow factor. What separates it? And oftentimes, when you exhibit and you compete, the uh, the distinction, could could be the tiebreaker. Meaning, has it been done before? What's unique about it? Uh, does it pop? Is it what is the wow factor? And does that wow factor outdo the wow factor of the other photos in that class? And so if anyone would like a PDF version of the guidelines and rules for judging rose photography, that's certainly available. And it's a large handbook, if you will, but you can read through it and begin to understand the template that the judges use to judge the different classes.